watching TVC Breakfast, the Monday morning edition, and we're looking at the naira. Things don't seem to be looking too good for the naira. A sharp movement from what had obtained in the last couple of weeks.
Contrary to expectations.
Yes, indeed. With CBN's intervention and all of that, they've pumped so much. They're still planning to pump some $418 million this week. That's quite a lot. So what is responsible for this seeming turnaround? Well, we have Nnaemeka Obiaraeri. He's a financial analyst. He'll be looking at this for us and explain why the naira seems to be taking a turn. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
Yes, good to have you. Now, CBN says the banks, the deposit money banks, are frustrating their efforts. It sounds like a cry for help. To me, what exactly is responsible for this now?
The Central Bank of Nigeria is the apex bank with almighty powers to control, regulate, and supervise the deposit money banks in Nigeria. If the central bank is now crying out for help and SOS, I wonder who they are crying out to. The CBN wields enormous powers to bring any erring deposit money banks to book. So if the deposit money banks are not doing what they're supposed to do, if they are misbehaving or trying to sabotage the reformed and the transformed forex policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria, I don't think the Central Bank of Nigeria has any need to complain. All they will have done is just say, wield the big stick. It has always been a case of carrot and stick. When you persuade them morally and they refuse to budge, hit them hard. All of us were in this country in 2009 when Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, as the CBN governor, wielded the big stick and brought a kind of sanity in the system. And I will tell you this, they may be right, because some of the deposit money banks in Nigeria, I will tell you, most of them, what they are doing in Nigeria is not banking. They are doing what we call mercantilism, rent seeking. And I think the central bank has the enormous powers bestowed on it by the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act. They should wield the big sticks. Can I tell you something?
Yes.
Based on the economic recovery and growth plan of the federal government of Nigeria, especially in the areas that covers microeconomic stability, trying to align fiscal and monetary policies to be in sync. I think if we pursue some of the provisions, some of the landmark provisions in that document, digest it and digest it even to the microcosm levels, we will continue to have stable market. I don't think the Central Bank of Nigeria has any need to complain. If they feel the commercial banks are sabotaging them, fish out those who are responsible. And like I said, one of the weakest link in the central bank is the supervisory department. I will tell you this. The Consumer Protection Department and the supervisory department must wake up. If they don't have adequate personnel, the Central Bank of Nigeria must up their game, employ more people, look for more capable hands, because these banks need to be washed. Because a lot of things are going wrong in this economy, because those who are supposed to play their rightful roles as the intermediators in the system are not doing it.
All right, that said, Nnaemeka, let's get further information, especially to our viewers now, on how we got to this point now. The Central Bank of Nigeria is again stressing its determination to sustain the supply of dollars to the foreign market to enhance liquidity. The Apex Bank's acting director, corporate communications, Isaac Okorafor, in a statement said the bank wants to disabuse the notion by market speculations that it wouldn't be able to sustain its intervention.
Yes, indeed. Now, Okorafor said the bank would again inject more foreign exchange into the market. The Apex Bank warned commercial banks and other dealers to desist from sabotaging efforts aimed at making the economy to rebound. Of course, Nnaemeka Obiaraeri has said the CBN is the regulatory body. It has the big stick. It should wield the big stick. And I wonder, what really should the CBN be doing in terms of specifics, and what really are the loopholes that these banks are taking advantage of to, flout the CBN's orders?
I will tell you what is happening. As somebody who is in the system and an investment banker, the Central Bank of Nigeria, you will have asked yourself this question. Why did we have the naira skyrocket to the level it was when it got to 525? How did we get to this stage? How we got to this stage is because of the, I will tell you this, connivance between those that are supposed to regulate and those that are supposed to make sure that things are done right, and the key operators in the system, those that act as intermediaries between the surplus economic unit and deficit economic unit. Here we're talking about deposit money banks. You will also discover that one of the reasons why the naira lost so much value, apart from the topsy-turvy policies of the central bank before they got it right now, is also the issue of speculation. We had a wide band between the official market and the parallel market. And this wide band gave room for a lot of arbitrations. People manipulated the system. Now the central bank had done the right four things. Those at the retail end, especially those who are involved in invisible transactions, can now access these funds through the central bank or through the commercial banks. You will have seen that some of those who will have panically gone to the black market to go and buy $1 to pay for school fees, to go for medical tourism, can now have official windows through which they can access it. Even the BTAs and the PTAs. I think what the central bank should do is to create a hotline. I can call it an e-portal. That e-portal should be a place where people should be allowed to blow the whistle, where consumers, where customers who have experienced maybe hitherto shady activities or untoward demand from the operating system can blow whistle and let the Central Bank of Nigeria know what is happening within the system. I can tell you this, the real demand for the dollar is not so much the way we have seen it. What happened was that most speculators, riding on the wave of the connivance between the regulator and operators, manipulated the system to the extent that naira almost crashed irredeemably. So what the central bank will do is to make sure that they up their games. Make sure you strengthen the supervision department. Make sure you strengthen the consumer protection department. Make sure, in fact, the consumer protection department should be given so much powers so that they can even bring erring banks to book, even without going to the board. This is something we must do.
And what do you have to say, Nnaemeka? What do you have to say now, while we, of course, continue to express concern on sharp practices of commercial banks? How about the BDCs now? Are they clean in this area, especially as the central bank is saying it's among its proposed things now to sanitize the system? It's saying it's not going to release not more than $10,000 now to BDCs to operate in. So what do you have to say in this area?
I think what the Central Bank of Nigeria should do, as a matter of fact, is to review the guidelines, guiding the operations of the BDCs. I am very much concerned that somebody will get a license to operate a BDC, and the only source of his supply or his dependence for supply of dollar will be the Central Bank of Nigeria. If the guidelines does not allow them to source for dollar from other sources outside the central bank, I think the Central Bank of Nigeria, as a matter of fact and responsibility, should try to amend the guidelines to encourage these BDCs to go out there and seek for dollars. Of course, they will report it from whatever sources, from diaspora, from every other remittances. And I can tell you this, one of the major problems we had before now was the proliferation of the BDCs. You should ask yourself, who are even the owners of these BDCs? Before now, most people, even in the system, the regulators, the commercial bankers, we are the ones that floated these BDCs to enable them take opportunities that are created through the loopholes and systemic inefficiencies. If the BDCs were actually a creation of people that actually sat down to do their business plan, to look at the viability and all those stuff, and it was actually a business setup for sustainable operations, I don't think we'll be having this debate about central bank giving them dollar or not.
Okay, so Nnaemeka, what you're saying then is, look, there's a need for not only the CBN, maybe there should be some kind of legislation really to check the activities of BDCs, some 3,000 or so of them across the country. But the BDCs are saying that they actually need more than the $20 million that the CBN actually gives to them every week, and they're asking for the diaspora remittances that you just mentioned, some moments ago. How is that going to help really in changing the tide for the naira?
Because that is what I'll just say something here. If the operational guidelines given by the central bank on how the BDCs can operate will not allow them to source for dollar outside the CBN window, the Central Bank of Nigeria, as a matter of responsibility, will have to amend it and have to rejig it. I am very much concerned. Like I said, why must the BDCs depend on the Central Bank of Nigeria as their only source of dollar. Okay, assuming that the Central Bank of Nigeria decided to close the window and said, we are no longer going to give dollar to the BDCs, what will happen to their operations? Would they close shops? These are the questions we should ask ourselves. The responsibility of the Central Bank of Nigeria foremost is to maintain financial sector stability, economic stability, microeconomic stability, foreign exchange stability. That is their role. And the Central Bank of Nigeria is not at their duty is not to act as Father Christmas, to give dollar to whomever to seek for dollar without taking into cognizance the issues that has to do with financial sector stability. The Central Bank of Nigeria, they are the ones that control the system. They have a bird-eye view of what happens in the system. If the Central Bank of Nigeria feels that the BDC deserves to get more dollar allocation than it is now, I am sure they will do it. But from what is happening, the Central Bank of Nigeria, they have clear understanding of what is happening. They have the indices. They see it better than you and me, and even the BDCs. So what the BDC should be talking about now is how do we strengthen the system? How do we amend operational guidelines to allow them independently source for? Let me tell you, there are billions of dollars out there, over 25 to 35 billion dollars of diaspora funds that are not coming into Nigeria. What do we do?
Nnaemeka, we're gradually getting to the top of the hour. Let me just chip this in now before we conclude. The central bank is also planning to attend to some mature forex obligations now, talking about fuel importers, the airliners. You've expressed concern about the Father Christmas nature of CBN at this time. What about those categories? Nnaemeka, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Now, let me explain this thing to you. One of the reasons why we had the huge depression in the value of the naira was because the Central Bank of Nigeria did not do what they were supposed to have done in June to August 2016. Some of us did mention this. I did an article that was published in the Punch on what I call the CBN World FX policy as at that time. One of the solutions we made then was that before the Central Bank of Nigeria devalued the naira or depreciated the naira in June 2016, we had outstanding FX obligations of about $5.1 billion. And most of these FX obligations were FX obligations that were incurred when the naira was at 197 to $1. So by Central Bank of Nigeria moving the goalpost, what we would have expected them to have done then was to have a programmed and staggered program that will enable them pay off, offset some of these obligations so that the system will have a clear direction. But they never did it. But thankfully, wisdom prevailed, and the Central Bank of Nigeria now decided, okay, going forward, all the outstanding LC obligations in the system for the oil and gas industry, for the manufacturing industry, not only for even these two industries, will be taken out over time, and which is good. And it's one of the policies that have actually stabilized that system. What they are doing now is what they will have done a year ago, but it's better late than never.
Absolutely.
So
okay, you know what?
Belongs in the same category as the BDCs.
Nnaemeka Obiaraeri is a financial analyst. Still remain with us, Nnaemeka. We're not done with you yet on the show. We'll be talking about this more when we come back from this break. Stay with us. Right, you're welcome back. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri is a financial analyst, and he's been discussing the Naira with us right there via Skype. Finally, let's just quickly put this in before we let you go, Nnaemeka. Now, there's been talk about legislation for Naira convertibility in West Africa as part of the solution to actually, get the Naira to recover fully. Would that help out in any way?
First of all, we have to ask ourselves, how feasible is it to have Naira convertibility in the West Coast? Of course, it will have the other Apex banks in some of these other countries will also have to agree for it to be operable. And it will do well, but how feasible and how possible it will be is another thing altogether. Like I mentioned to you earlier on, the issue of Naira stability is something that we'll have to look at and ensure inwards. One of the reasons we've had the bashing that Naira has received over time has been the issues of instability in the market. Now we are gaining traction. We are having stability back. We have a working document now that has been prepared by government, though it came late, but like I always say, better late than never. All we need to do now is to sit down. We now have a global document, what we call a shelf document, that contains the monetary policy and the monetary and fiscal policy direction of the federal government of Nigeria in terms of ensuring economic recovery, in terms of ensuring economic growth and diversification, in terms of ensuring monetary economic stability, in terms of ensuring competitiveness and business environment, in terms of ensuring security and soundness in the system and governance. So basically what we have to do now is to dilute this thing down. We'll have a global document. Now we'll have to go to the macro levels, to the ministries, to the departments, and to the agencies.
All right, Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insight and your input on the show this morning, talking about the naira and the dollar.